Hello everybody, I know it's been quite a bit. Welcome back to the channel. Happy November, happy almost Veterans Day to our veteran viewers. I have a fantastic game that I just could not share, and I've been playing around with a couple different decks recently. I've been building some legacy decks in paper, so I've not been super active on MTGO, but I do jump on every now and then to get a little bit of a commander fix when I feel like it. And when I don't have anything to do, I've been doing 50-ish hour weeks. So with the new job, it's been fun getting into it though. So this deck is actually a Rashmi deck that I've been playing with. Here is the deck list if you want to pause the video and do a screen cap or something so you can see what I'm working with here. It's a heavy spell-based list. So this is a great game, and I think I just liked how the whole game matched up. Where is it? There we go. I wanted to give you guys a moment to like pause it, not just blitz through it. If you needed to see the deck list. So Rashmi, Eternity's Crafter. If any of you don't remember or don't know, whenever I cast my first spell each turn, I reveal top card of my library. If it's non-land with CMC less than the spells that I cast, I may cast it without paying its cost. If I don't, I put it into my hand. Notably, it does not draw the card. I put it into my hand, and that matters because Boxes with God, great guy. We had a pretty good chat after the match. Is playing Leovold, Emissary of Trust. So with Rashmi, because she doesn't draw, I'll still be able to get my extra card per turn during my turn if Leovold's in play. And I think the one mistake that Boxes with Gods makes is playing into what I do. So you're going to see a masterclass in why this card right here is so good. So I have this opening hand. I know he's on Leovold, but Leovold tends to run more spell heavy than creature heavy because it's a control build that wants to wheel. So I like where my opening hand position. I have removal, I have a tutor, I have draw power, and I have ramp. That's like the four things that you need to see in your opening hand. If you could pick four things to see. Sure, it's not the best of any of them, but it's still very good. And I have both of my blue-green lands in my hand, basically. So first turn, I have two options. I win the dice roll, which is huge in this matchup, you'll see. And you can see that it's pretty big just because of how the game plays. So I have two options. I can either lead with Elvish Mystic and set myself up really well to be able to fuel Remora for like 3 or 4 turns, and I can play the long Remora game because on turn 2 I'll have 3 mana and I'll play Remora down and I could scroll for Force of Will. So then I have Force of Will backup by pitching Rapid Hybridization and Remora to fuel anything. So he has to play into the Remora, and if he plays like Leovold and he like pushes Elf into Leovold, I force Leovold, and then we still have Remora going if he tries to make a counter fight. So that's one line that I see here. The other line that I could play here is take the slower route with Mystic and slam Remora turn 1. Now it means turn 2 I'm basically committed to trying to get Elvish Mystic into play just to make sure that I have mana to be able to keep Remora going. The best thing that you can do with a Mystic Remora in play is get ahead of the mana production. So a ramp piece like this, or a Soul Ring, or like a Priest of Titania is huge, because what Remora lets me do, as long as I hit land drops every turn, it'll keep me at the amount of mana that I had when I first played it. So I played it on turn 1, so I'll always only have 1 mana as long as I hit land drops. What a ramp piece allows you to do is tick that up by 1 per turn cycle. So if I ramp on turn 2 from 2 to 3 mana, now on turn 3 and every turn hereafter without an additional ramp piece, provided I am continuing to hit lands and paying for more, I'll have 2 mana per turn. So that's why this ramp is huge, and 2 mana is a much better number than 1. And my line is either Remora into Mystic and then Mystic and into Remora based on this opening hand. There's no other line, but they're both good cards. So I feel comfortable. I'm going to keep it. My opponent I lead, and I decide that I'm too afraid of him coming out of the gate fast. He might punish me by going like Tropical Island, Elves of Deep Shadow, and in which case I'm super punished for playing the Remora first, and it would have been better to play the Elf. But if he does that, I probably have to let Remora go so that way I can Merchant Scroll for Force to keep Leovold from coming down. Because Leovold coming down, I'd rather counter the Leovold than counter the Twister that will be in his hand at that point, basically. And I don't have the time to use the Elvish Mystic, play out the Elvish Mystic, and then the following turn Force, because Leovold's already down then. And that's devastating, because then he can let me draw 1 card per turn, but then keep casting spells into Remora and it won't matter. So I'm going to consciously decide that I'm going to be blown out if he has like Trop into Elves of Deep Shadow. Basically, because that means any color of mana that he draws, any blue or green source that he draws lets him, or Tropical Island into Birds also works. But either of those lines lets him play Leovold off any land that he gets. So I'm going to go out Mystic Remora, and my opponent, this is why I include cards like this in my deck. So he shocks Overgrown Tomb, so I'm thrilled, because it means he's going to play a 1-drop. Not Elf, not Elf, not Elf. Burgeoning. Oof. Alright, so that's pretty good, because it can get ahead of Remora. He'll have way more mana, and I have to play lands to feed the Remora. I'll draw. Oof. Oof, what a top deck. Mental Misstep for his turn 1 Burgeoning. This is why you play Mental Misstep, people. Just because the blowouts that you get. He consciously decided to give me a card because it's going to ramp him, and now I just destroy that whole hope. Now, he doesn't know that I top deck the Misstep unless he's in the viewership for this channel, and he knows now, but man, that's gotta feel bad. Like, I get to trade Misstep for something, and you don't always get to trade Misstep for something, and it's especially something as good as Burgeoning. Now, he runs with Tormod Script, and I staunchly disagree with resolving Tormod Script and giving me a card here. Tormod Script isn't relevant yet. You don't know I'm a graveyard-based deck. Maybe he's playing around like Delve cards, but I'm not even close to like any big Delve, even Hooting Mandrills or something. I don't think Tormod Script was the right play. I get Noxious Revival, which is pretty sweet. You'll see why that's included in decks like this in a moment. And then he leads Mana Crypt, and if he's not casting something off Mana Crypt this turn, I don't agree with playing that either. Yes, I'll take a free card. See, and he passes. So why did you play out these, at the very least, why did you play out Mana Crypt? Now you gave me a card and you're risking shocking yourself for no reason? Alright. I mean, I'll take the free draw. And I decide to keep Remora here. And I'm instantly rewarded by drawing my own Mana Crypt, which is fantastic. Now keep in mind, Remora drew me through 3 cards. So next turn I would have drawn Mental Misstep, and then played out Remora and held up Misstep, and I would have I played off Remora off the Mystic, and then held up blue plus Misstep, because I would have played fetch, used Mystic to cast Remora, and then had Trop plus fetch up. But I would have drawn Mental Misstep this turn. So Mystic Remora just read for me Ancestral Vision. Now I paid an extra mana into it, so now it's like a standstill type effect. I paid 2 to draw 3. But now I get so far ahead of it. There we go. Sorry, I keep hitting my 1 button, which is my pass priority button, instead of the forward. So I'm going to fetch out here, Breeding Pool, and I decide, I think about it, and I'm going to scroll for Force. I could push ahead, but I'm already pushed ahead with the Mana Crypt. I'd rather just make sure I'm protected. So I scroll up the Force. Because I'm ahead on cards, trading 2 for 1's fine, especially if I'm going to force a non-creature spell, because then I'm trading 1 for 1. Because I'm spending 2 cards and drawing 1 card, and they're spending 1 card. And I only spent 2 mana to counter any spell, basically. So he gets Hinterland Harbor, and then pushes Rhystic Study. Now again, I'm forced to decide, do I counter Rhystic Study? Looking at my hand, knowing I just tutored, it might be a while before I can do anything with it. I have Noxious Revival, which I want to use as a free spell, and right now I'm looking at Mental Misstep or Merchant Scroll that I'm going to Noxious Revival. So free spell, making both of those spells cost 1 mana might be too rough. So I decide I'm going to force, especially because he's giving me a card. I'm going to draw the card first, decide if it's another blue card I want to pitch instead of one of these. I'm going to pitch the Hybridization. I like Bonfire better. I like giving them apes. So he's going to go Miri's Guile. And this is another... So, no, my opponent, Boxes with God, is at 2 cards in hand. Now, I would be at about the same point if he didn't feed me so many cards. He's fed me 5 cards now. 1, 2, 3, 4... Yeah, he's fed... Mystic Remorse, I've paid 2 mana into it, and it's a draw 5, which is huge. And this is almost a blue contract from below. Almost. So I'm going to Noxious Revival, targeting Mental Misstep. And I ask him why he didn't crack Tormod's Crypt here. And he says he didn't feel that it was worth it. So I'm doing this in response to the Remora trigger because Noxious Revival put it back on top of my deck. So then I can use Remora to draw into the Misstep and Misstep the Guile. I care about the Miri's Guile because, 1, it's a card that I can counter here and put... The longer the game goes, the more I think my deck gets favored at a certain point because Mystic Remora is feeding me cards. Unless he gets a wheel off, I feel like I'm in good shape. But I also want to make sure I continually develop my board ahead of his because he will play wheels in his deck, especially Time Twister. So I want to make sure I have as much mana in play for when a wheel will eventually resolve, because I have no doubt that I will not be able to stop all of them. I'd rather keep Leovold out of play and let the wheel happen. So I want to make sure I have as much mana as possible in that post Wheel of Fortune, or sorry, Time Twister world, basically. Or Commit to Memory, that's the other one that's new. So I'll draw the Misstep. And he said that it wasn't worth, Miri's Guile wasn't worth the Crypt, but I think it was. Like, what value are we really getting from Crypt here? Besides depriving me of Delve. And you deprive me of 5 cards there. I would only have Noxious Revival in my graveyard after Tormod's Crypt happens. I think it would have been correct there. Because you're at 2 cards, this ability to pseudo-top every upkeep might be worth it. It's probably worth it to try to fight over Miri's Guile. Because you just fed me a card, keep in mind. You gave me a card off of... Like, sure, I wouldn't draw the Misstep, but I'm still going to draw a card. So at least counter my Noxious Revival by trading your Crypt. Because your Crypt gave me a card as well. And it's done nothing for you. So you've given me a 0 for 1. I've spent 0 cards and you spent 1 card. Or I've drawn 1 card and you've drawn 0 because you've gotten no value out of your Crypt yet. I'm going to play into Crypt. I'm not a graveyard-based deck other than the Delve cards and the Noxious Revival. So I decide to let it go. 2 mana, draw 5, sounds good. I'm going to lose a lot of Crypt flips in this game. The reason I let it go is because now I have 2 options. I can either deploy Fellwar Stone or get Rashmi down. And I decide Rashmi is the better line here because I gave up 1 draw engine to put another draw engine into play, basically. I also have 1 mana removal if he does decide to push Leovold here with no protection because he only has 2 color sources. So now's the time to do it because then I can Pongify Leovold, give him a card. I'll get a card because of Pongify, so it's a neutral. I trade Pongify for a commander, so that's slightly in his favor. But then I draw 1, he draws 1, and he gets a 3/3. I'd rather him have a 3/3 than a Leovold, though, you know? Even if he's going to be able to recast it again off the Crypt the following turn. That's fine. And we talk about decks amazing to yourself. I said, like, it lined up well with the hand, but we were talking about the Tormod's Crypt on the Noxious Revival, and he absolutely should have done it. Knowing how my deck operates, he should have done it, but he probably wasn't sure how much of a graveyard-based deck I was yet. So he thinks for a bit, thinks some more, plays Standstill. Now, Standstill happens. I'm not going to Pongify my own Rashmi in response to put pressure on. It might have been correct, but I decide I have the draw power. I have the ability to say, give him draw 2, because keep in mind he spent standstill 1 card, and he's going to draw 3 cards, so it's a +2. And I went +5 over his spells, -1, so I'm +4, he's +2. And Rashmi's going to give me a card off standstill anyway, so I'm +5 to his +2, so I'll still be ahead the equivalent of an ancestral, even if I break standstill at this point, which I think is huge for me. So we lose another crypt flipped. Look at my life, it's 13 already. Jesus. So yeah, I think I go, yep, red zone. I think I missed like 2 attacks here. Not that it's relevant, but I'm gonna consciously break the standstill, and I break it with a 2-drop because I might be able to hit a 1-drop off Rashmi. And it's sort of learning how to play. Like I'm planning to play birds this turn, but I want to play the more expensive thing first because I might get a free spell. And I'm immediately rewarded. He gets 3 cards, sure. And I'm rewarded by getting to cast Llanowar Elves. Cool, 1 more dork. And like I said, there will be a wheel at some point. I know he will attempt multiple wheels in this game the longer it goes. So I want to have as much mana as possible. I'm going to put out the birds. I think yeah, and then I leave up the 3 mana so that way I have Reality Shift and Pongify here. And I'm going to play the same game against him. If I'm going to try to have as much mana in the post-wheel world, I want him to have as little as possible. Of course, he gets Chromatic Lantern, land, and Elves. So he drew mana, to the best of our knowledge. He drew 3 sources of mana. All right, nil, Spellbomb. And now Tormod's Crypt looks really weak because you could have had Mirri's Guile in play instead of Tormod's Crypt here, and you now have Spellbomb anyway to deal with my graveyard. I think this is too committed to Graveyard 8. These are old ways to hit on graveyards, and I don't think they're that strong anymore. So I'm going to Reality Shift his Elves of Deep Shadow because I just want to be able to pick up another card, and I also want to deprive him of mana. Also, a 2/2 I can attack through, whereas Pongify, I'd rather Pongify his commander. His commander's already a 3/3, so I'm just downgrading his 3/3 commander into a different 3/3. I'd like to Reality Shift the Elves. And because my life total's low, I'm going to chain my own Mana Crypt. Because it doesn't cost me mana, at the very least, I can use Mana Crypt and draw a card off the Rashmi next turn. I'm not going to copy that, though. So I get Factor Fiction, which is pretty huge. So I'm going to lead with the 1-drop because I do have zeros in this deck besides Mana Crypt, like Mox Diamond, Chrome Mox, stuff like that, that I might want to cast off the Rashmi if I so choose. I'm going to get Natural State, which is a pretty good draw, I think. And actually a couple different lines. Most likely, it's going to target his own Mana Crypt. And because I drew Factor Fiction, I'm going to play the Mana Crypt back out. It saved me 1 shock, basically, but I got to use my Chain of Vapor for free. It's possible I should have held Chain of Vapor as additional removal for Leovold in response to a wheel, but I felt that it was still correct to do it, because he can sack a land and then remove something else in response to a wheel, and I don't like that line, in the sense that he can use his lands to fight, to bounce my sources of mana in a wheel situation. Because I have to deal with Leovold first, then he can hit my Mana Crypt, and then I'm obligated to hit his Mana Crypt, because I'm trading 1 mana for 2 mana, and then he can trade 1 mana for Rashmi, and it starts getting bad. So I think it's better to use the Chain of Vapor there and save myself the shock, potentially. He's going to Spellbomb me, and I think this is the attack that I miss here that I forget to attack, even though I talked about it. So I fake like I have Counter Magic. I decide, alright, Mystical's fine. He's probably going to get a wheel. He's got enough mana, and now that he has Chromatic Lantern, he's probably going to try Leovold Time Twister, right? His reveal card, Time Twister, fantastic. So he has 1 unknown that we have to worry about, basically. So we're going to Natural State now, because we want to use Factor Fiction to try to hit another spell off Rashmi that we can cast. Even though we could Natural State on his upkeep after he potentially shocks himself, that would trigger Rashmi. So I want Factor Fiction to trigger Rashmi. So that's the 1 unknown card, so we know everything that our opponent's about to do, and we know he's going to try it. He's got to try it, right? I'm down to 2 cards. He knows about none of them. So he has no idea what's in my hand, but he is in for a surprise. So he's going to Leovold, and I think I have Factor Fiction in response. Yeah, I do. So this is because I might hit Counter Magic off Rashmi's trigger, all my counter magic, with the exception of Force of Will, cost 3 and less. And it might make him split a Fact or Fiction differently. I had Priest of Titania, which is huge. Love that hit, because that's 1, 2, 3, 4 if Leovold stays in play, which he won't. So I hit Mana, Thrasios, and Pull from tomorrow. And I think he puts Thrasios, Pull, yeah, in one pile, and the mana in there. So I take Thrasios, Pull, because my mana situation is now set. If he chooses to not Twister, I want to have Pull from tomorrow. I would have taken Pull from tomorrow versus 4. Maybe Thrasios. Thrasios might have been the best pick, now that I think back on it. Like, even if he did Thrasios versus 4, the pick is probably Thrasios, because it's a source of card advantage in wheel that I can't fight through, you know? But, so the reason I want Pull from tomorrow, even if he doesn't Twister, is because I am going to kill Leovold with Pongify. There's no way that's not happening. And now you'll see that Natural State on his Mana Crypt prevents him from leaving any mana up here. Even though he's not going to have a card in hand, I am going to give him a card off this Pongify. He does go for it, which is absolutely correct. He knows I have 2 blue cards, but he knows he exiled Force earlier, so he's not worried about that. I'm not going to commandeer it. And I don't have the island for foil. I told him I was ready for that one. Yeah, I had the removal ready. And I draw... This is not the hand that I drew. I did not draw Git Probe. We're going to bug out. It's alright. I win this next turn, so that's fine. So I drew a hand with Mystical Tutor here. And I have a blue-green source available right now. So I'm gonna count my mana, and then I'm going to count my mana again. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. And then my land drop, I think I had Ancient Tomb in this hand, will be 13, 14, 15. So I have 15 mana available. So my line here, and notably I have blue, 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 which is huge. So I can safely play the Ancient Tomb as well. So I'm going to play the Ancient Tomb. I'm going to use Priest of Titania, Ancient Tomb, or my line that I'm thinking right now. I've already drawn my card for Rashmi this turn. I Mystical Tutor. Let's just let it bug out. So I'm going to Mystical Tutor for Enter the Infinite. It'll bug there. Yep. That's not what I drew. And now you'll see me tapping all the mana. I was supposed to play an Ancient Tomb there. The mana will disappear. I Enter the Infinite, and that's the end of the game. So after I enter the Infinite, I have blue, blue, 1 available or something. See, and we bug out. So I have blue, blue, 1 available, so I'm able to use keep that mana up and play, or not blue, blue, 1, mana and mana open. So I play Mox Diamond, Chrome Mox to get myself blue, blue to turn Mana Drain online. And I don't think I even changed my steps there. Maybe I did, which would have been incorrect if I did, because I know I'm going to draw my Mana Drain. So I play out the entire deck. You know, I'll just pull up the deck in that situation. My opponent's tapped out, even though he has a hand. He either has Force or he doesn't, but he can't daze me, which is why I wanted to go for it there. So I draw the entire deck. I play out Chrome Mox, Mox Diamond, Mana Vault, Soul Wings in my graveyard, keep in mind, Grim Monolith, and Cynic Signet, and that's enough mana to imprint Dramatic Reversal underneath Isochron Scepter. I think I put back an island after Enter the Infinite. So imprint Dramatic Reversal underneath Isochron Scepter, generate infinite mana. If you're not familiar with that combo, Isochron Scepter and Dramatic Reversal, imprint and instant card with CMC 2 or less. This has an instant card with CMC 2 or less, untap all 9-line permanents. So when I use Isochron Scepter, I copy Dramatic Reversal, but this taps it. So then Dramatic Reversal will untap Isochron Scepter. So as long as I can keep feeding 2 mana into it, I can keep twiddling my own Isochron Scepter back and forth. But it's also twiddling all my other 9-land permanents. So it's twiddling all my Mana Rocks, all my Mana Elves, my few, all, I say all, most of my mana elves, getting all of this value out of that. And then the 2 win conditions in the deck are Stroke of Genius and Blue Sun Zenith. And you just, if you don't have Enter the Infinite but you get infinite mana, you just stroke yourself for typically like 60 or something. Like you build up your hand of counter magic. So you stroke yourself for 60, and then you drop all the rest of your mana rocks, and you stroke your opponent for 1,000 or whatever, and the deck work. And they draw out their entire deck, and there's nothing they can do about it. That's what originally the list only included Stroke of Genius, and then I added Zenith just because I wanted to have a backup win condition in here. So the other reason that we're running this Noxious Revival is because in response to Rashmi's trigger, let's say we cast Factor Fiction, and we have counter magic of mana drain in our graveyard, and we know we want to counter whatever their spell is. So we cast Factor Fiction, and in response, we Noxious Revival mana drain back to the top of our library, and then Rashmi trigger reveals mana drain, and we get to cast mana drain on their spell, and then we still get to resolve our Factor Fiction on top of all of that. So that's why Noxious Revival's in the deck. It's a free way to put a card back on top of our library to cast for free with Rashmi, which is not what we did that game, but sort of the same idea, is that we're intentionally putting a card back there to draw and use immediately, which I thought was cute, that we got to do something that was in the deck to do, but not the way that the deck was designed to do it. Seasons Passes are other recursion, and the reason we're running the Seasons Pass is that way we can pull back the Noxious Revival along with the other spells. Unfortunately, both of our X spells here cost is CMC 3, but Pull from Tomorrow is CMC 2, so we can Seasons Pass back Pull from Tomorrow. I usually choose to, if I've lost both Stroke and Zenith, I'll always go for the Zenith back, even though it's triple blue. I want to be able to make sure that I'm getting it to shuffle back into the library. It's also the reason we run so many colored mana sources. So Mox Diamond, Chrome Mox, Simic Signet, Fellwar Stone, and Birds of Paradise. All of which produce colored mana. So while you're comboing, you need to be able to produce blue mana specifically. I could see running a Sky Diamond in here as well, because you need the blue mana to be. All the elves produce green, so you don't really need the green mana as much. If I feel like I need to up it, it'll be adding the Sky Diamond. So Seasons Pass is huge. Submerge is a free spell in a lot of games, so Submerge is also an option to, like, oh, you're playing Leovold, alright, I'll go get, I'll Merchant Scroll for Submerge, target your Leovold in response to your wheel, so that way, it's just another thing. That is usually a 5-mana free spell that will usually get an additional free spell off of Rashmi. It's also not terrible to cast, and it pitches to force. True Name was one of my own additions, so that way we have at least one other way to win the game is a combat clock that can't be dealt with, or it does infinitely moat one ground creature because it can block forever. Overall, the deck's a lot of fun to play, and I know it's definitely not the taste of Nate or Brian because it's a combo control deck, and man, Nate hates Rashmi. Because she just does crazy stuff like, I just put Rashmi in play, and I'm just going to play the rest of the game, but the rest of my game is going to be infinitely better because I have Rashmi in play. The one thing that I like about this deck is that it can win without Rashmi. She's just such a powerful engine for a spell-based control deck like this, because you can play the elves or the mana ramp on your own turn, and then the interaction on your opponent's turn to be able to maximize Rashmi's ability, so that's an extra 2 cards per turn cycle. It's a ton of fun to play. It's a cool take on it because my other one is a taking turns heavier, super heavy green, like green ramp. Look at that, 35 lands versus 29 in the spells list. So it's super heavy on the green ramp, and it plays the extra turn effects and like bribery and temporal manipulation, Sylvan Primordial. So it plays all this big fat green stuff. And I wanted a spell version of the deck, and I think it's a testament to Rashmi's ability that she can very easily command either of these decks. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I loved playing the game. We had a great chat back and forth, and my hand did match up very well with what my opponent did, but he also did play into that more, not really understanding how backbreaking it was going to be for him. I think if he had not played into the more as hard as he did, maybe only tried to get the burgeoning down and then pass the turn, and then I play into it, and he just makes a couple land drops, I'd be incentivized to let it go before probably. I would never pay 4 mana for their more in that situation, I think. Even if I'm able to fuel it, I think that Remora needs to go before I pay 4 mana into it. Because at that point, I've paid 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 mana into the Remora at that point. That's a ton of mana to invest over the early turns. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. We'll see you in the next one. I'm glad to be making another one, even if it is short.